Welcome to the 34th sitting of the Tobago House of Assembly's 2013 to 2017 session, which took place at the Assembly Chamber at Jerningham Street.
Whereas the Tobago House of Assembly is cognizant that economic development levels are in part related to human capacity and therefore has made significant investments towards increasing capacity in the island's human capital. And whereas this administration has also instituted strategies across divisions to develop the skills, knowledge, and expertise necessary for Tobagonians to be able to plan, implement, administer, and control the economic and social spaces, be it resolved that this House support the Executive Council in its continuing efforts to nurture a knowledge-driven environment that will encourage and facilitate all residents to upgrade themselves. And be it further resolved that this House urge all Tobagonians to maximize the available opportunities so that they can contribute with pride to the development of Tobago's future and the protection of their heritage. Let me begin by offering a definition of sorts. Human capital. The term human capital has been defined, Mr. Presiding Officer, as a key element in improving a country's economy, the well-being of the people, that leads to increased productivity as well as sustained competitive advantage. Therefore, it can be said to sustain competitiveness or the competitiveness of a country, human capital becomes a key instrument to be used in increasing productivity. Additionally, Mr. Presiding Officer, human capital refers to those processes that relate to training, education, and other professional initiatives that seek to increase the levels of knowledge, skills, abilities, values, and social assets of an individual, which will lead to his or her satisfaction and performance, and eventually impact on a country's development. Mr. Presiding Officer, in the Comprehensive Economic Development Plan 2013 to 2017, the vision of this assembly as it relates to human development is articulated in a form, and I want to quote, "Development of Tobago's people in Tobago such that they can be in charge of their own development with the skills, knowledge, and entrepreneurship necessary for their being able to plan, implement, administer over, and control the economic and social space." Mr. Presiding Officer, that essentially is how the Comprehensive Economic Development has laid out the vision for us as a people, as an administration, and how we want to govern, how we want to change this island. But Mr. Presiding, obviously, if these benefits are to come to an island, there are a number of hurdles that we must, of course, address. And some of these hurdles to human capital development as laid out in the CDP 2.0 are as follows: recruiting and finding creative ways to fill the gap in secondary school education due to inadequate numbers of mathematics, science teachers, and trained laboratory technicians and assistants. A dearth due to the lack of proper career guidance at the secondary level, which often results in a mismatch between qualifications and the desired career outcomes. Revising the brain drain of Tobago and enlisting a commitment to and inculcating values that will motivate young graduates to stay in Tobago to contribute their best to its development. Achieving buy-in for the concept of lifelong learning and upgrading a large proportion of Tobago's labor force with higher level education and training in the shortest possible time to meet the needs of Tobago's changing economy. Increasing computer literacy and access for all. Putting ICT infrastructure and systems to support distance education and self-education, addressing the issues with coordination, financing, planning, and implementation in the education sector. And finally, Mr. Presiding Officer, preparing the human capital to meet the needs of a responsive and efficiently run and transparent Tobago House of Assembly. Mr. Presiding Officer, and what I've just done is laid out what is considered our vision, and that has been articulated and documented in the CDP 2.0 2013 to 2017. What we have done and recognized as a division is that There's a need, and I'm sure my colleagues around the table will share that in their presentations later on, and if you've done that before, that that overarching document must be aligned to what you're doing within your respective divisions. And we sought to go about doing that, Mr. Presiding Officer, by aligning our strategic framework in the division, developing a new strategic framework, and ensuring that it was aligned to the CDP 2.2. We recognize, therefore, Mr. Presiding Officer, that our strategies must be driven first and foremost by a vision for the learner. It must identify the kind of graduate, the kind of citizen the education system must produce, and that is necessary for Tobago's social and economic growth and development. Mr. Presiding Officer, our vision of a learner or the graduate is as follows. A lifelong learner who is critical and a creative thinker, emotionally secure, with high self-esteem, strong ethical values, and a strong sense of family, community, and their Tobago identity. Yet globally aware, demonstrating multiple literacies for the 21st century, applied innovatively to solve problems and meet needs, and actively pursues physical, mental, social, and spiritual well-being and contribute to that of others. Some key attributes of this learner that we'd want to produce, this person that we'd want to come out of our education system as we develop the young person, Mr. Presiding Officer: a critical and creative thinker, emotionally secure, as I said before, with high self-esteem, strong ethical and moral values, and a strong sense of family, community and their Tobagoan identity, but this person must be globally aware. They must, of course, Mr. President, also be socially, culturally, and environmentally responsible. And of course, as we said before, demonstrate multiple literacies, including information and digital literacy, Mr. Presiding Officer. So we'd have also recognized that besides the opportunity, the other strategic area is, of course, promoting the economic empowerment of our young people. And of course, we would have had programs as administered by the Division of Finance, the Business Development Unit. But of course, we would have worked in conjunction with the Prince's Trust and those kinds of programs that offer the opportunity for young people to get information and to get micro loans for implementing small business opportunities. We have other initiatives like REACH in social services that again allows for that young person making the transition who would want some funding to open a small a chair in their home, the small parlor. What have you, Mr. Presiding Officer? Mr. Presiding Officer, another strategic area we have spoken about is building youth social capital and strengthening their resilience. And that speaks of the opportunity to have our young people interface with other across the communities, both here in Tobago, through our Building Villages program, but will allow a number of them to travel to other countries and have an influence in Lucia, Grenada, to see what the life of young people in those other territories and those other islands are like, and then have the opportunity to recognize that, one, the commonness in youth issues all over the world, in terms of issues with self-esteem, issues with sexuality, issues with governance. This, and therefore, allow you to put a perspective on your own life. And I'll give an example, Mr. President. Some years ago, and I was then considered youth, I went with, I was then a member of a youth organization, and we went to Namibia, which is I guess it's like South of Trinidad and Tobago. Namibia is essentially kind of governed by South Africa. And if you know the history of apartheid, apartheid in Namibia was even worse than it was in South Africa. But they are very intertwined. If you can spend South African money in Namibia, you get back Namibian change, or vice versa. If you want to go to Namibia by international flight, you have to go through South Africa. This is strangely the nature of this with their relationship. And there's still challenges, but we went to, a number of us from Trinidad and Tobago, Mr. Presiding Officer, went to Namibia, and with the then Minister of Sport, Honorable Roger Boynes, and the PS, a number of people from the ministry. And I remember what happened with the young people from Namibia telling us how identified, told us, they said to us, we like Americans. And we was like, how we come up with be like Americans? And they said to us, you all are so bold and have so much self-confidence and self-esteem. And very often as a people, we underestimate how much that we have developed as a people and how much good things that we have. Very often we look at ourselves in a kind of negative light. And it reminded us that, because when we went there, and I think when we look back at why they said it, it was interesting. We did it because, I mean, we were one of the more noisier bunches. Some night we went to a place of entertainment and a nightclub, and we wasn't too, the music there was nice and we enjoyed it too, but I happened to have a compilation of soca music, so we decided we go in and we take it over the club and give it, and them is things strangers don't do from a part of the world they didn't know don't do. We were the noisiest, we were the first in sessions, we was the most participative. So that when we looked back, we kind of realized that but in our minds, we are here. That is how we participate and participate fully. And I think that sometimes as a people, we don't recognize how much we are, how strong and resilient we are, how focused we are, how skillful or how resourceful we are. And I say that, and this is by no means, this is not by chance, it's because of the institutions that strengthen us, our churches, our schools, our youth organizations, Mr. Presiding Officer.
And Mr. Presiding Officer, recognizing the importance of the quality of our human capital to the development process, the Tobago House of Assembly has invested and continues to invest in upgrading the capacity of our people. My colleague, Assemblyman Hughie Cadet, would have alluded to the various initiatives under the purview of the Division of Education. And I want to join in support as I outline some of the initiatives on the Division of Finance. And I want to point specifically to the Youth Energized for Success program, the YES program. And through the YES program in the Division of Finance, and through a number of the activities that we undertake there, and also in collaboration with the Department of Advanced Training and Advisory Services in the Office of the Chief Secretary, we have developed a number of initiatives aimed at empowering our people here in Tobago. Mr. Presiding Officer, if you will, just permit me to highlight some of these initiatives undertaken under the YES program to assist in strengthening our human capital. The YES program was developed with the objective to develop and support the holistic development of young Tobagonians between the ages of 18 to 35. This program was established in 2012, and what we have seen is the registration of at least 900 young Tobagonians registering with the program, and we would have secured and facilitated these individuals with job placements and internships. The YES program, Mr. Presiding Officer, has also introduced a series of initiatives for upgrading the skills and capacities of young Tobagonians. One important initiative of the YES program is the Life Skills program. And what we have seen thus far, Mr. Presiding Officer, is that Tobagonians from areas throughout Tobago have been exposed to training and development workshops in crucial areas such as time management, anger management, financial literacy, career planning, entrepreneurship, public speaking, and substance abuse prevention. And this is all geared towards enhancing their personal skills and to assist them in developing the right mindset and to assist them to achieve their life goals. So, Presiding Officer, for this year and to date, what we have seen is an estimate of around 300 persons. The figures that I have is that at least 300 persons would have benefited from these life skills seminars, and they were conducted in the communities of Mason Hall, Bethel, and John Dyer. Mr. Presiding Officer, what we have done to assist In addition to the life skills program, what we have also done through the YES program is to attempt to prepare our young people for the world of work. The YES program continues to organize resume writing and interview skills workshop, thereby providing a holistic approach for the professional development of our young people on the island. About 6 training sessions are held every quarter, Mr. Presiding Officer, and the classes average around 20 participants. And to date, over 150 participants would have benefited from these workshops. What we also have attempted to do, Mr. Presiding Officer, is to provide our young persons with opportunities not just within Tobago. And as a result, the YES program has established links with a number of national and regional organizations in its attempt to secure internships for many Tobagonians pursuing tertiary level studies. I can cite one successful example through our discussions and negotiations with the central bank at the Division of Finance. We were able to secure 2 internships on an annual basis at the Central Bank of Trinidad and Tobago for Tobagonians pursuing studies in areas such as economics and banking. And this is an ongoing initiative, and at least 2 Tobagonians will participate in the bank's summer internship program on an annual basis. The bank has given us this commitment, and again, it started last year, Mr. Presiding Officer, and it will continue this year. And I anticipate an increase in the number of Tobagonians who will be participating in that program from next year.
The capacity building workshops under the leadership of Assemblyman Ansel Dennis and Coordinator of Community Development, Mrs. Ayana Webster Roy, and her team have been doing extraordinary work, ensuring that community leaders who have been successful in their own organizations and persons with the expertise within the division and across the divisions ensure classes are taught in leadership, fundraising, financial management, communication, proposal writing, entrepreneurship, interviewing skills, and resume writing, preparing them for coping with the eventualities of rainy days, but hopefully preparing them for a better tomorrow. The Coordinator of Culture, Ms. Glenda Rose Lane, and her team over the past year have also expanded the training programs beyond the Community Performing Arts program, where the basics in mainly drumming and dancing are taught. The Arts Push program has now been added that focuses on teaching advancement techniques in all of the areas of dance, drum, and drama, including the indigenous arts of tambu bambu and tambourine playing, and the speech band as one component of the oral traditions. The results we have seen already beginning to work. For those who at the opening night, you saw the production of a world-class performance put on by Tobagonians, created by Tobagonians, everything done by Tobagonians. And these are the effects of us investing in developing our human capacity right here. It was only a few years ago that we had to bring some assistance from Trinidad to help us put on the anniversary event. But I am quite sure that at this point, we do have the cadre of people on board to continue giving us world-class performances like the one last Thursday for years to come. Building human capacity is also about empowering citizens to be responsible for their own well-being. And therefore, the phenomenal woman in the arts program takes the mature woman and retools her for addressing the stress in her life by learning and maintaining close touch with the culture through dance, drumming, and singing, but also provides the opportunity for her to learn a craft that can add a reasonable stipend to the household. Indeed, if she decides to convert her learning to earning by having her creations for sale. These programs are stationed at the Calder Hall Community Center and also at the Argyle Community Center, where during this heritage period, the bus tours are arranged such that the end of the tour will be at the Argyle Center for lunch, and hopefully the visitors there will have an opportunity to purchase from the ladies in the program. Building human capacity is about the opportunity to gain experience and practical learning on the job. The division, therefore, last year would have launched a new program called the Youths in Culture program that is specific to young people in the cultural and creative industry. These young people were brought on board and they were asked to go into their respective communities and find their cultural icons in those communities. They questioned them, and then they had to provide reports on their profiles, reports that we will be able to use later on at some point with documentaries as one of our programs that we propose for the upcoming fiscal year. In addition, they were asked through the eyes of the youth, how do they see events like emancipation, and therefore how would they put it together? And over the last year, 2014, the youths in culture, with some guidance from the adults, were able to create a new concept in the rollout of the Emancipation Day activities last year that was deemed quite a success by persons.
I ask myself sometimes, Mr. Presiding Officer, why is it that we in this administration are so concerned about human capital development? And I'm quite certain that many young people out there should ask themselves, or have been asking themselves, the question as well. But it's because, Mr. Presiding Officer, one, we want Tobagonians to use the knowledge and expertise they would have gleaned to evolve into economic value. Two, we want Tobagonians' social habits and creative talents to be converted into dollars, Mr. Presiding Officer. Three, we want Tobagonians, and I would challenge young Tobagonians, to develop industries, start manufacturing. This will also help with producing economic value. But not only that, Mr. Presiding Officer, it will also treat with addressing labor productivity on our island. A bit more about that as I go into my presentation. But four, we want all Tobagonians' standard of living to continue to improve and be sustained. Because there is no doubt that this Orville London-led administration from 2001 to present has undoubtedly improved the standard of living of all Tobagonians. Hence the reason, Mr. Presiding Officer, the Financial Assistance Unit has been renamed the Department of Advanced Training and Advisory Services. And my colleague, Secretary of Finance and Enterprise Development, would have alluded to it. But I just want to say a tad bit about it, Mr. Presiding Officer, because as I said, I'm conscious of the time. Because it was renamed, initially the name of the unit was the Financial Assistance Unit. So people felt that that particular unit was just to disburse money. So I want to apply for financial assistance to go and study, I go and apply, and I get some money. And Mr. Presiding Officer, it changed, the concept changed because it was felt by the officers in the particular unit that a lot more needed to be done than the unit just being a disbursement unit. We needed to advise students as to their development capacities, advise students as to the opportunities out there and how they can go about soliciting those opportunities, separate and apart from simply saying, I have a particular passion and I want to go and study that. And when you come back from studying that, there's absolutely no room for you in the inn because of saturation in that particular field that you may have chosen. Mr. Presiding Officer, yet another reason for promoting human capital development is simply to boost entrepreneurial activity on the island. Human capital development represents a form of wealth which directly or indirectly impacts upon economic growth. And economists examine a measure of productivity in an effort to ascertain a country's GDP growth. And Mr. Presiding Officer, none of this can be achieved without a productive labor force. Hence the reason why I'm contributing to this debate, Mr. Presiding Officer. The late great Dr. Eric Williams spoke of the significant connection between economic development and labor when he said in his historic 1962 independence speech, and I quote, "Slacking on the job jeopardizes national income, inflates costs, and merely sets a bad example. So therefore, we ought not to be slacking on the job, Mr. Presiding Officer. I want to take this opportunity to challenge all young people, because as young persons, and I still believe I find myself in that category, Assemblyman Huey Cadet, I still find myself in that category. We are the leaders of tomorrow, and it might sound like a cliche, but all the young people who are citizens residing in Tobago are the leaders of tomorrow. We must take responsibility for leading the charge of developing our people, for only by developing our human capital are we able to truly measure from an economical perspective our productivity and growth as a people and as an island.
Honourable members, the question is, whereas the Tobago House of Assembly is cognizant that economic development levels are in part related to human capacity and therefore has made significant investments towards increasing capacity in the island's human capital, and whereas this administration has also instituted strategies across divisions to develop the skills, knowledge, and expertise necessary for Tobagonians to be able to plan, implement, administer, and control the economic and social spaces, be it resolved that this House support the Executive Council in its continuing efforts to nurture a knowledge-driven environment that would encourage and facilitate all residents to upgrade themselves, and be it further resolved that this House urge all Tobagonians to maximize the available opportunities so that they can contribute with pride to the development of Tobago's future and the protection of their heritage. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Those against say nay. The ayes have it. The motion therefore carried.
Thank you for joining us for the 34th Tobago House of Assembly 2013 to 2017 plenary session.